Oh, well, that was not quite as seamless as I hoped. Tried to
Yeah,
give you the thumbs up just to stop Two Finger Johnny as the song ended, but I just missed out by like a second.
yeah, and then we've not gone live at our usual. Or thing is, have we ever gone live
I
at
will
any live thing we've ever
clarify,
done?
I was technically live at like
Quarter to.
1:43.
But then it all
And
fucked
then
up
my
because
PC decided, no, fuck you, being prepared. I'm gonna blue screen, I'm gonna freeze on you, and the webcam's gonna stop working.
how good does it feel though, knowing you always have the inbuilt excuse for any technical mishaps by just saying professionally unprofessional?
It's true.
It might be the strongest gimmick for
Well,
people who aren't very good at doing what we're doing.
yeah, and
Like,
like,
I mean, like, we're decent at making videos, decent at making content. I mean, in the sense that like, we're not professionals, but we
yeah.
try. We've tried to give the illusion of being professionals because something that's I think do we know what episode we're on? Do we ever chat that?
I think this is now 116.
This is 116. So next week will be Master Chief episode. Got it. So we can talk about Halo all day. And
How
as
it
usual,
sucks.
I'm joined my co-host Lucas. Say hello, Lucas.
Hello, Lucas.
And yeah, something I've heard talked about a lot that I think it gets stronger every day is that nobody knows what bad content looks like anymore.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I want to say something
everything's become so middling.
yeah, they're even the most bogs, like even the most crappy of streamer will have like a professional camera. So like my camera right now doesn't look as clean and crisp as yours, but it's still pretty decent quality. But people are so used to such exceptionally high quality as the norm. No one really knows what bad stuff looks like. And how do you feel about that in regards to media? There's like just nothing is bad anymore. Everything's just the thing is there are still bits of bad content out there, but the vast majority of people and the vast majority of pop culture that is consumed is just of such exceptionally good quality. The average of what is bad has just gone up.
I will tell you that something that was legitimately bad though, Karl.
Yes.
Very minor spoilers for episode 1 of Kenobi, but that fucking forest run scene.
No, we're going to talk about Kenobi in a bit because, like,
dear fucking god,
it's the hottest shit right now. But how do you like? Disney's one of those things that I think is responsible for that. It's a concept my girlfriend introduced me to. It says it's called like the Pixar effect or something like that, where Disney and Pixar have just created such astonishingly good animated films. Not even in terms of like the style. I mean, like in terms of just how good the animation is. Like they're so good looking and they like push the boundaries of the art form in literally every film they make. Like every new animated Disney or Pixar film pushes the technological boundaries of what can be achieved in the medium in some way, to the point where like people see stuff that is still exceptionally good, but it's like, well, it's not as good as Disney. It's like, yeah, because we've not got $1 billion.
And that's the thing as well, is like I thought with, saying like the Pixar effect, you were gonna say like kind of, well, a bad Pixar film is still a good movie kind of thing.
Like it's still better than 90% of the shit that comes out from everywhere else, which is also part of it. Of everything that Disney puts out is at very least like a 6 or 7 out of 10. And that leads
pure minimum,
yeah, and that leads people to not have a understanding of what something that is bad, objectively bad from like either a filmmaking standpoint or a story standpoint actually looks like. And it's the same on YouTube, where we have had like the most minor of technical hiccups that people have said is like absolutely unforgivable because the level of quality expected on the platform is so high.
And that was actually a video that Brad Nisha did recently on the side channel.
I think that's what inspired it. I saw it's like the technical issues in factory videos. Yes,
going through some technical problems, and a lot of it is just like something was blurry, the audio was echoey. Like the worst ones are normally when something is straight up lost.
Yes, or like we don't focus the camera, and that's my mistake, not their mistake. To
be fair though, there was one time when I forgot to refocus in between shooting a video. There's like, oh, because I remember shooting that one day of like, video 1 is fine. Then there was like the Pikachu wiki video, which is blurry as shit. And then I realized, and the one after that is fine. And we have 3 videos from the same day where 2 are in focus and 1 is really blurry.
Yeah,
like, God damn it.
even when like the videos are blurry, like the sound quality is still really good. And I just find that to be a very interesting concept where a lot of people literally do not know what bad looks like anymore. And it makes discussions of media and criticisms of media so hilarious in that way of like, we could probably know we're not going to speak about the Obi-Wan Kenobi show in a bit. And I do not doubt there are people out there saying it is like the greatest thing to exist. And there are other people saying it's the worst piece of shit to have ever been made. It's like, that's the thing. Media is not anymore, especially not media that's put out by these big companies. Like, it will never be straight up bad. It will always be middling at worst. And it's like that thing, isn't it, of with car drivers?
Kenobi. Like, Kenobi of all programs, when you're talking about it, is like, it can be nothing but inconsequential because it has to fit in between two trilogies of movies with already set canon.
And the amount of people they've got working on it, it's at the very least going to be competently made. And it's like that, the thing about driving cars. Have you ever seen this, where every person who drives a car who's asked to rate their own skill at driving a car would rate themselves as above average, which means above average is the new average. So technically, they are average. If you told them they are an average driver, they're like, well, no, I'm not. I'm above average. Like, but no, everyone says that. So above average is the average. It's the same with film, where every film that's like a blockbuster or released in cinemas is generally, above average in terms of quality for the whole of the thing that's produced. So
especially
above average
nowadays, like post-COVID, it's hard to get into movies now. And like, obviously, there are... it was already a business on the downturn before COVID, and public theatres have just taken a fucking shot in the foot since.
And it's why when you get like your Morbiuses, your Justice Leagues, these huge productions that are supposedly put out by these companies who only make the safest products available, it's so surprising that they could have had so many people, so many hands on this product. So many people were talented in their field and they still fuck it up.
And that's the thing is, like, I'm sure, yes, Morbius, we haven't seen it, but I've seen clips of it and stuff, and I've heard reviews and listened to podcast reviews on it and stuff like that. I've heard a lot of discussion about that movie, and all of it's been, this movie is, like, bland and forgettable, all really stupid and cheesy kind of thing. And, like, again, anyone that, like, half knows what they're talking about will tell you that movie's, like, a 5 out of 10. But everybody who goes to see it that, wants to have a discussion on Twitter will be like, this is the worst movie I've ever fucking seen.
Because the only thing
it's not, because
the only thing you have to
you haven't watched a student film that got made on a shoestring budget where none of them knew how to hold a camera properly, you know what I mean?
Because the only thing they have to compare it to is other properties like from the Marvel universe, which are all like have such massive budgets and talent behind them. And that's interesting to me that media criticism is not dead, but it has certainly been diluted to the point where you can very easily write someone's opinion off based on how binary their opinions are. And I think a common criticism you often see when it comes to criticism, which is quite ironic, is for the love of God, please watch movies other than Marvel movies. You don't know what you're talking about. And you can always tell when the only movies people watch are Marvel movies. It's like the other thing of like always comparing books to Harry Potter or games to Dark Souls. Like, dear, please, it doesn't matter if it's even good. Just play something else to give you a more rounded perspective, please.
I also seen. I've seen multiple videos, but there must have been one that was obviously the first one to do it, or like there was an article that everyone's ripping off or something. But I've seen many people make the exact same video on TikTok of, did you know that Harry Potter is lazy Star Wars? And it's like, it's not lazy Star Wars, it's just the hero's journey. Like, it's a very basic trope of writing in general.
Star Wars is just lazy Kurosawa. And that's the thing. I remember we talked about on the podcast once, wasn't it? Where was it someone bitching about the Mandalorian? No, it was Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh,
they were talking about Ghost of Tsushima is just a rip-off of like old Western movies. It's like, well, no, old Western movies are a rip-off of old samurai movies made by Kurosawa. And that's the thing of like, but because they don't have that context there, it's like, oh, it must be a rip-off of this. Like, no, because you don't understand the context. Western movies are rip-offs of like samurai movies.
Yeah. It's like,
and without that context, their criticism, I'm not going to say it's worthless, but it certainly has less value in the space.
Especially when it goes to Tsushima's case of like, that was a game that literally had a Kurosawa mode.
And they didn't even know how. And that's the.
They literally are sitting there wearing it on their absolute sleeve of like, this game is inspired directly by Kurosawa. Well, it's just a Western. All right.
Tell me you've never watched a movie like from like more than 30 years ago without telling me you've never watched a movie from more than 30 years ago. But Lucas, speaking of things of exceptionally high quality that can just sway people into thinking that everything else is shit. Tell people about our podcast and where they can find little tidbits and things to help support and make it.
Well, yeah, this podcast, Karl's Corner.
Bad.
It was, but I'm rolling with it, Karl. Let me go.
Okay. Professional.
This podcast right now is being watched live on the Untitled side channel over on YouTube. If you are a Patreon member, you're a patron of the Patreon.
On Patreon.
It confuses me sometimes. Over on Untitled side channel, patreon.com/Untitled side channel. So, you can go and watch this live, and we're also trying out an exclusive patron-only little post show at the end of this podcast. So if you are a patron over on that Patreon, you can I'll be putting the podcast up there with the extra little tidbit at the end where we're going to ask patrons for some questions to answer. Yep. And I'll also, it'll be on the live stream, but for people watching on or listening on podcast services, you can find us anywhere. You'll be getting the regular Karl's Corner as usual. You would never know the difference other than us stating that there'll be a difference.
Yeah, and is that a thing of it's very important to us to not gatekeep content that would ordinarily be made without this, and this is an idea we've had of like, let's just give people on the Patreon like a little bit of extra value, which is something we're trying to do there because we feel it's like, well, if you support it, it's like we didn't want to do it, but at the same time you kind of feel
like you're giving us money. I feel like we owe you something in return, and the something in return is that side channel. But I also still feel like maybe people don't realize that. But
because that side channel is entirely funded by the very kind donations we receive from our fans on Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
And then to clarify as well, that won't interrupt the Q&A episodes we do with this very podcast. It's just we do those infrequently because the questions come in waves, don't they?
They do.
If you'd like to send a question, you can do so to karlscornerqa@gmail.com, and an episode of that will no doubt get made at some point in the near future.
Yeah, it would probably be quite soon because last time we did some Q&A, we did a half and half episode. So there'll be some there. But it's just we wanted to do a little extra value add whilst we have the camera equipment and stuff set up. Yeah, so you can still feel free to send questions over to that email address. We will do QA episodes as usual. Thank you for pointing that out, Karl.
Yes, but we feel like the ones for Patreon because they're probably going to be a bit more timely. It allows us to answer stuff in a bit more timely manner as well.
Exactly. It just means I can put a post out on the day, send a couple of questions over, answer a couple of questions, just a little added bonus at the end.
Yeah, and they're more likely to be, as I said, timely because they're asking us questions about things that perhaps happened on the day. It's like right now, as we're recording this, there's is it Scarlet and Violet reveal trailers happening?
Yeah, so something has come out about Pokemon that I don't know about, but people viewing might know about, and that makes me really stressed, Karl. Because I normally don't care, but when it comes to Pokemon, I kind of do. But this is going to be I think I'm going to watch the trailer, make probably a video about it for the side channel this week, and then be blackout mode from there.
Yeah,
because this is the first proper trailer we're getting, rather than just a teaser.
And I'm just going to ignore everything as usual because I'm at that point in my life now. It's I know what I like. Maybe every now and again I'll stumble across something that I think looks interesting. I'll explore it. But as it stands right now, I have many interests, and there is a never-ending list of pieces of content that I need to get through that will never be completed. So that stress thing of when someone says, "Oh, you should watch this," and you add it to your mental list, and you think, "Well, I've got to watch 5 different fucking seasons of a show that's been recommended to me, 3 different movies, a bunch of movies that have just came out, a couple of books, a few video games to play." And it's that thing of there will never be an end to the content that I am going to consume. That just falls within my exact field of interests. Mm-hmm. Which is why one of the reasons why we don't do suggestions and requests on the channel, because there's simply so much stuff that we want to talk about that we'd like to talk about that we're never going to run out.
Yeah.
Because our interests are not only is there all the stuff that exists that currently includes our interests, all the new stuff that's being made and released.
The last thing is I got multiple books over my birthday and Christmas period, the Batman Court of Owls volumes, and Ask a Water, that book, that one I really read, and Dave Grohl's biography and stuff like that.
I really am interested in that one because there's a lot of neat tidbits in there.
Yeah, there really is. And it's just baffling because my primary thing to do is game. I'm going through my gaming backlog. As my gaming backlog gets bigger than it does smaller at all times.
With every new game that gets released.
Even when I can't keep up with my gamer backlog, in the back of my head, I'm like, well, I've got like 3-4 different books I've also got this year that I've not got around to reading. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Because it happened to me, I bought, just on a whim, I've always wanted to have those compendiums, the Final Fantasy compendiums.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I have all the original artwork in them as some coffee table books. So I've been slowly going through them alongside a book my girlfriend's mum got me for Christmas, which is called Metamorphosis, which is the Rick Baker autobiography. Rick Baker is a very famous, very successful, and very influential movie special effects artist. And he's been working in the industry for like 60, 70 years. Like he worked on everything. Like he cut his teeth working on like, you know, the fucking, I think like one of the early King Kong movies or something like that. And his life story is really interesting. I've been, again, working through all of that as well. So like they're these huge coffee table books. Like it's fucking, I'm talking like it's the size of a PS5. And there's 2 of them. And it covers like the entire like 6 decades of his life and his career. And all these like amazing behind the scenes things with him being like a weird creative, has documented every single thing he's ever done. And it's got all this stuff in it about like, oh, here's how they made like the Creature from the Black Lagoon and all the crappy B movies he worked on. And I'm reading that. And I'm like, well, this crappy B movie looks awesome because of the effects. I should probably go try and track this down.
See, that's the thing is, obviously I've seen a lot of YouTube stuff, and like Corridor Crew really well known for it, of like getting VFX artists on and stuff and stuntmen on, of like
fascinating
detailing some of the things that they do. But that's fascinating, but I feel like it'd be even more fascinating to sit down with the people that had to do it all physically in like the 60s and 70s and stuff, and how the fuck did you make this? Because like listening even about like, you know, the T-Rex in Jurassic Park and like the little half Velociraptor puppets they had to make and stuff, that when it's physically made, it seems like even more interesting and complex and surreal.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that's like I find it super interesting, which is why my girlfriend's mother like bought me the book. And it's like I got like, you know, 100, 200 pages in, and I realized I've been reading this for like 5 hours. I'm going to take a break now. And then that was like 3 months ago. And it's like, oh, God damn it. Because I want to get back into it. Again, the list of things that I've got to do and see and do. And then, like, you know, it's maintaining a social life, maintaining my work life. It will never end. And that's a good thing, I feel. Like the fact that we are in such an embarrassment of riches in regards to content that I will literally never run out of things that personally fit my very specific tastes that will entertain me. The fact that I like conceivably I will never be bored for the rest of my life. There will always be something new for me to consume or do that is tailored to my interests. And that's kind of like, what's the word I'm thinking of now? Not wholesome, reassuring.
Reassuring, yeah.
Maybe. Just to think that for the rest of my life, there will be like this virtually infinite content I consume that will I will find entertaining.
It's like, I'm pretty sure that at this point, if no more games were ever released, I would have a big enough gaming backlog to just do me for the rest of my life.
Basically, yeah. It's like with movies and stuff. It's like one of the things that I've been doing is Better Call Saul's coming out. And that like the finale is going to be in a couple of weeks. So I've written a few articles about Breaking Bad, specifically in anticipation of that coming out. So we can do like a week of Breaking Bad content and Better Call Saul content. And I've just been going back through all of the interviews and commentary tracks that Vince Gilligan did for the show. And they're fascinating. Like some of the things that they're talking about of like, oh yeah, so here's a scene where like they're sat in I think it's like an early season of Better Call Saul. They're sat in a lawyer's office. This is on a soundstage. There's no view out the window there. That's actually a giant blown up photograph of Los Angeles, even though in Albuquerque, but it's blurry enough that you don't notice. And those trees are potted house plants that have been blown to the side by an electric fan. And it's that thing of like, I would have never noticed that. Well, the fact that that's what they had to do to get this one shot in this one show.
It's like, I've not watched much behind the scenes stuff of Breaking Bad, but
I would recommend it because everyone involved with it is like a weirdo perfectionist.
I can tell because like I've watched the Mythbusters episodes of Breaking Bad specials where they get like Vince Gilligan in to talk about the myths and like how much did you research each thing, and like they are meticulous.
Like he is such like a weirdo perfectionist, and he's a really, really nice guy. Like he seems like
someone,
the kind of person where if they weren't doing this, they wouldn't be doing anything else. Because when he's talking, he recalls everybody's name. He has nothing but nice things to say about them, and he recalls everything they've ever worked on.
Oh wow!
And he's like, and every time he brings in, like, his director of photography or the guy, like, one episode they just brought the lighting director in. It's like the lighting director on a TV show, and it's like every single, like, there's a scene where they're sat on like a park bench, and the lighting, it's like, oh, so how did you like this scene? So you'd think it was just early morning, which it was, but the sun was in the wrong direction. So we had to block out the sun and bring in 3 trucks with generators in to create enough light to create an artificial sun for this scene.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then the scene ran a little bit long, so we had to edit it out. But to edit that out, what we had to do is when people walk past the camera, we slowly fade out and cut the scene in that way, and you never notice it. And then we had to like CGI people on bicycles out of the background because it caused continuity. And it's like, this is a scene of 2 people sat on a bench having a conversation.
And you'd think
like,
it was just get a camera out in the wild, put them on a bench, go.
It's like, no, because we wanted a specific look for the scene. So we're like, what? First thing we did, we blocked out the sun. And then we created a new...
is step 1.
Literally, first thing they did, block out the sun, create a new sun. And that's like for the opening shot of one episode. And there's like 40 minutes of this shit of all the stuff they have to do.
Yeah, it's just baffling. And like, that's the kind of... I feel like that's not the difference between a good and a great TV show. But when you've got people that care enough to do weird shit like that for their artistic vision, that's probably what makes it. Not the act of blocking out the sun for a park bench scene, it's the people that give enough of a shit to do that.
They care enough to make sure they care enough that they do that, and they insist upon it as well, and that they film. They specifically requested and didn't back down, because they could have easily just filmed it without that. But the fact that they were so insistent upon it, and then like every character in the series has like a color scheme. It's something I've got an article about, so we'll talk about it. So it's one of the things I wanted to refresh my memory on. And it's like, yeah, Walter White's color is green. Like, that's his color. And so when he's not in like Heisenberg mode, so Heisenberg's color is black to represent the fact that he's like, evil, very like, basics film school stuff. But Walter White's color is green. And they're talking about there's a scene where it's Walter White wearing like a bath towel. And it's like, well, for that bath towel, that colour doesn't exist.
Is this so like the bomber jacket dark green colour that he wears? Is that his colour? Yeah. Yeah,
and it's like we had to, and you'll notice that it gets progressively darker over the seasons.
Right.
And they had to get their costume designer to go out and get, so, okay, we need you to find a jumper that's exactly this colour. Okay, it doesn't exist. Okay, make a jumper in that colour. Okay, here's a scene where it's like, he's wearing a bathrobe. It's like they don't sell bathrobes in this colour because it's an ugly colour. It's like, fucking make one. Or like his car. His car is a very specific shade of green that does not exist because they specifically want it to be this one shade of green because Vince Gilligan said it's the most unattractive shade of green I can imagine. So obviously they don't make cars with that colour scheme. No. So he made them repaint the car to give it that colour scheme. It's like, what?
Oh, man. Wild.
And that's the thing of like that said, it doesn't, doing that stuff doesn't make a show good, but the fact that the people making the show even think about it means it's more likely to be good because the people behind the camera give a shit.
Yeah.
And they give a shit about conveying like, their true vision.
Like, yeah, it says a lot when people have such a strong vision and have both the like opportunity, but also the actual gumption to go and do it and stick to it.
And like they could have very easily said, fuck it, do something else.
And obviously, they could have also not been provided enough of a budget to go that far with it, but they clearly utilised their budget well.
The alternative is that they had a vision and that vision was like shit. Like they could have had like, that really specific vision, but it could have been handled very poorly because their like, their vision is bad. Like Zack Snyder. We've dunk on him all the time, but like he is a creator like where he got a lot of creative freedom and he's very insistent that his vision be realised.
He's got a vision and he fucking sticks to it, but
his vision is poor.
Yeah.
And his handling of the source material is poor and his directive skills are very poor. When it comes to anything but action. But he's still stuck to his guns. And
I always sit there and go like, people always give a shit for never liking anything Zack Snyder does. And every time I sit here and go, he makes compelling action scenes. Like 300 compelling because half of that movie was just compelling action.
Yeah, he should have.
The rest of it is just like,
Zack Snyder should direct Super Bowl commercials exclusively. And there's like $3 million Super Bowl commercials that have like
slow-mo, vague, like almost nonsensical action and weirdness going on.
Yeah, where they just have like an action scene with a bunch of characters in it for like a few minutes, and it's like, buy this. Like he should exclusively direct Super Bowl commercials.
I would
starring
argue he would
Transformers.
probably be one of the best commercial directors there is.
That's how Michael Bay cut his teeth. Michael Bay got his start in advertising, and one of his most famous ads is Got Milk. He did the first Got Milk advertisement.
Yes,
that was him.
But no one remembered that campaign, Karl.
One of the most famous, and that's the thing, Michael Bay. And you can see it when you watch his stuff, like, you know, his quick cuts and things like that. Like, yeah, he's used to working in a field where, you know, you've got people's attention for 30 seconds. And when you realize that, it's like, wow, yeah, that's his entire movie.
And then he made a movie starring giant transforming robots. It was so boring, I fell asleep too.
I also fell asleep during one of the And the thing is, I fell asleep during the one with dinosaurs in it. I was like, how did Michael Bay make robotic dinosaurs that breathe fire boring?
That sentence in itself should prove that that's impossible to make boring. Giant robot fire breathing transforming robots.
Dinosaurs. Yeah.
Dinosaur robots, yeah, like
it's a skill. It's a skill in of itself to mishandle something that's like should be a slam dunk. It's like Joe, when you see people miss a goal from like 2 foot away, it's impressive in a way. Like, it's not good.
Like when you look at those shots where it's like an open goal a foot away and it like defies physics and goes squarely up, and you're like,
yeah, when they spoon it from 2 foot in front of the goal, it's like, it's not a good thing that they did that, but it's still impressive that they pulled it off because, like, you know, it defies all logic that you could do something this bad.
It's literally harder to do that than to score the goal.
Yeah, like you could have tapped it in, and that's the thing as well. It's like when people try and showboat on the, like, you know, when they're running or something and fall over. That's also impressive that you hadn't, like, you could, if you just walked it in. You'd have done fine. You'd have got a perfect time, but you, like, you know, you had to try and show off. You had to try and flex a little bit, and it fucked up.
I think it was
like taunt to get bodied, the truest combo of all.
Great one that I saw like on TikTok or whatever recently, and it was like, during a 10K or whatever, a little child overtakes this woman, and she tries to like take it out by the ankles as it's running past.
I try to take the kid out.
Take this little kid out. Like, no, you won't defeat me.
Like, whose ego is that small?
And you know that little kid was probably stood 100 meters from the finish line, and they just went, go on, run. And it's like, oh, god damn it.
It's like that lady, innit, who tried to take a selfie at the Tour de France and knocked over like 300 people. And they were like complaining to the thing, like, oh, she doesn't deserve, like, it wasn't her fault. And it's like, it literally is, she did it on camera. Like, she didn't mean to knock anyone over. It's like, well, to be fair, she could see behind her, she was taking a selfie. So you could see behind you. And I think they did get away with that. Like, they got, like, they told, like, the court of public opinion as, like, you know, rate them over the coals enough. Just don't fucking do it again. So I do that thing of like knocking something over in a shop of like, we're not going to make you pay for it, but we are going to ask you to leave.
And even then, most of the time, it's like they don't even ask you to leave. They're just like, look, just be careful, all right?
Yeah, don't do it again. Because that was one of the most surprising things I learned writing for today. I found out when one of the questions that we got asked once I answered is, what happens if you like knock over something in a museum? And I was like, you know, I'm actually curious what happens if you like knock over something. You know, they're sometimes irreplaceable because these are historical objects that may not exist anywhere else on Earth. And it also led me down the avenue of like, also, why are these things just out on display? Because like, why is it that you can walk into near enough any museum on Earth and just like go within spitting distance of these like irreplaceable works of art?
Just like a bit of a red rope behind, like in front of it, going, "Don't touch it."
Yeah, and it's only in the most extreme cases where you have it actually protected from the public. And the answer that I found is quite adorable, really, is, well, it's everyone's shared heritage. Like, to hide it behind like glass stops you from truly appreciating it. And it's like, you know, it relies on like, you know, a level of trust between both the museum and the people there that you're not going to fuck it up. And on occasion, there are people who do fuck it up. Like, just this week, we had someone try and throw cake at the Mona Lisa.
No, they smeared a cream pie all over it.
Which is
not in a dirty way or anything. Like, literally just, you know, a bunch of fucking whipped cream just smattered it on the Mona Lisa.
And the Mona Lisa is behind bulletproof glass because people keep trying to do that. And then I've seen the David.
It must have, yeah, because that's the thing is, like, it must have been on an occasion where, like, it was open to the public because it was physically on the painting.
Is it? They get on the painting?
They got it on the painting, but
it's usually behind glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, for that reason. It's like Michelangelo's David. You used to be able to walk right up to it and touch it, because like it's fucking marble. What you gonna do? And then one day, one guy walked in with a hammer and hit it, and he broke the toes, and they had to repair it. And it's like, okay, now it's on a plinth, and you got to stand 12 foot back because one knobhead ruined it for everyone. And otherwise, like you could just walk, and it's that thing of like, if people could be trusted, we can let you on up until they can't be. You are allowed to just like walk up and be within touching distance of these works of art. Like,
yeah, because I've been to the Louvre a few times, and like I've never been able to get, not that I'd want to, but it's always like behind a panel, glass or whatever it is. It's always been protected. But no, you literally see like someone wiping cream off the physical Mona Lisa, and I was like, maybe it was one of those where they take it to somewhere else and it's not in the Louvre. I'm not quite sure on the details, but I was very confused by that. And yeah, this is why. Because
it's a shame, isn't it? Because like, it's our shared national heritage. Like, this art belongs to everybody. It's why museums exist and they're publicly funded. It's like, because everyone can enjoy this.
I can't confirm, but I did see like at the time when it first came out, it was like, oh, like it was a suspected like eco-terrorist trying to send a message. And I'm like, but why is like ruining the Mona Lisa sending a message of like, be better to our planet?
It's that thing of young people, especially young people, and it's the thing. It's the energy is correct, like caring for the environment. It's just like it's been directed in the wrong way,
completely the wrong place. Yeah,
it's like the one that we've dealt with, isn't it? I think we talked about when we had a box of shreddies on a desk once, and the amount of people who were giving us shit. It's like, you're supporting Nestle. So yeah, Nestle is an evil company, but the energy that you're using to shit on Nestle should not be directed at people who literally just need to eat to survive.
I just need to eat some cereal that day, okay?
It should be directed towards the people who run Nestle and make the decisions that result in these awful things. Like, so your anger is correct. It's just being directed in the wrong direction.
You're directing it at the people that just want a box of shreddies and not the people that are like committing horrible atrocities.
Yes, and that's the thing there of and it's understandable with younger people, because they don't know, they lack the world experience.
It's similar to people like I've had it a couple of times where people have given me shit for ordering something from Amazon. I'm like, but it was cheaper and I can get it earlier and it's more convenient. Like, they're providing a better service to me and I'm one person, And like, yeah, but you shouldn't do that. That's not fair. Like, they don't treat the workers right. It's like, well, that's on Amazon to treat their workers better, not me, one man who isn't involved in a business.
Yeah, and it's
like, yeah, I get it, but at the same time, I needed something and it was cheap and quicker to get it there.
And everyone makes their own decisions about what they personally consider to be like the moral choice in one scenario. And it's just, but getting back to that thing about destroying art, I discovered multiple cases where people had accidentally, and in some cases maliciously, destroyed works of art, history and stuff, and suffered absolutely no recompense for it. Like, there was a case where a guy knocked over a vase or something like that. It's like, okay, it's worth like this many thousands of pounds, leave the museum. Then they look at a CCTV camera and it seems he did it on purpose.
Right, yeah.
And even in that situation, the guy didn't get in trouble. It's like he got banned from the museum. Because the museums are very aware of the fact like suing their patrons is not a good way to do it. And it's even in cases where like you actively, maliciously destroy things inside of them. Most of the time, they don't want to prosecute you for doing that.
And again,
that was really surprising to me.
That is kind of surprising, and at the same time, like, I also get it because you don't, especially with museums, like they already must not get enough footfall as it is. They probably don't want to scare people into the idea of like, well, if you come in and break something, then you're fucked and you get like sued into the ground.
Yeah, if you like trip over your shoelaces and that, which happens sometimes, accidents do happen. That's what, like, in the vast majority of cases I found, except for like the most obvious and malicious ones. And we got someone in chat confirming that the painting was down because bulletproof glass was in the frame. So it is protected by glass behind the frame, which is that thing of like, it's sad, isn't it, that you can't get.
Oh, right, okay.
I was always under the impression the Mona Lisa is like very heavily, because people keep stealing it.
Because when I've been to see it, it's literally been like encased in a box of glass, so you can't even like touch the physical frame.
So it may have been one of those things where, like, over the years, they've gotten like more sophisticated ones that allow you to get closer to the art itself.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, but I haven't been in like a little while now.
I just found that really interesting that even in the most malicious cases, like the museums very rarely prosecute. And then the other one that I found is, in a lot of cases, it actually draws more attention to the piece. Like we've got the famous one of the ladies, that fresco of Jesus, to the monkey Jesus, where the lady tried to repair that fresco and it looked like all fucked up at the end of it. You must remember Monkey Jesus. It's like basically a lady tried to repair this old like fresco of Jesus, and she did it so poorly that it became a meme. And as a result, that thing saw like a massive increase in tourism and visitation. And before that happened, it was this forgotten piece of art that no one really gave a fuck about. And then there's other examples of like modern artists, Joe, like when they do like their like pieces in museums that are like, I don't know, I think Damien Hirst, he's had a lot of his artwork thrown away because he's the guy who does like the shark in formaldehyde.
Oh, right, like installations. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of art in that vein has been accidentally thrown away by janitors and stuff like that and cleaners. And in most cases, I found the artist finds it funny, and it actually increases like attention to the artwork because like it's there's no such thing as bad publicity. And then in one case, it was an artist who's like, well, I think their art installation was just empty beer bottles dotted around installation, and the cleaner threw it away. And the artist, I don't remember the name of the artist, but they said, well, I don't expect a janitor to know what art is. And the janitor was asked for a comment back. He went, well, I don't know what art is, but I know what rubbish looks like. And it's just that little back and forth, like, again, increased footfall to that particular museum.
And I have just Googled Monkey Jesus and found the restoration.
Monkey Jeebus.
Do not remember that one bit. But
that was like worldwide news, was that?
I must have been asleep that day.
That was worldwide news. Yes, one of the most famously just like fucked up piece of that.
You can't even call that a restoration, Jesus Christ.
That's what made it funny. That like, and the lady in question's like, oh, I tried to improve it. It's like, but you clearly have no artistic talent whatsoever.
And I think there's the case of that of like I've seen it. I think it might be like feel like it's somewhere in Italy maybe where there was like the tops of buildings had like loads of little statues across them, like adornments and stuff. And they've tried to restore them, and it's come out as like cartoon-looking little baby faces and stuff. It's like, oh no.
Yep. Or like those old statues in Roman times where they had like huge, big swinging dongs, and the Pope like asked them to remove the swinging dongs, and then another Pope came in and went, "Well, we should probably put the dongs back." So
bring the dongs back.
So they had a big box. The story is that they had a big box, like in some like I think in the Vatican somewhere, of just hidden dongs.
Oh my god!
And they had to send like an expert on sculpting around to figure out which penis went on which statue. That's why some old statues have like the leaf on the front of them.
Yeah.
Because that's what they had to come up with a solution. It's like we used to have a penis, but they made us carve it off, and it looked bad, so we just put a leaf on there instead. But then like years later, like maybe a sculptor came back. It's like, well, I've got to put penis back on now. And it's like, yeah, that sometimes happens.
Like, what did you do today? Oh well, just put a dong back on a statue.
It's that old joke, isn't it, about Michelangelo? Of like, we need you to paint something on the ceiling of our church. It's like, yeah, we'll fill it with dongs out. And like Michelangelo was well known for being a huge troll for the church, and the famous thing that everyone probably knows and is screaming in the comments or what have you is that the birth of Adam looks like the inside of a brain. Have you ever seen it? If you compare the birth of Adam and you like compare it with a cross section of the brain, it looks exactly the same. And the working theory is that Leonardo da Vinci, as a huge proponent of the artistic method, attended illegal secret dissections of human bodies.
Oh, okay.
Because it was seen as like sacred to cut a body open because it was created by God. And the creation of Adam, like God touching his finger and stuff like that. Like, if you look, it's like the exact shape of a human brain, and it's believed to be like.
I've reminded myself then, and like, yeah, that is the exact shape.
Yeah, like a secret, like fuck you against the church of like potentially saying that like God came from the mind. God didn't create humans; humans created God, because God literally exists within the mind that's there. And it's like, and he got away with that because obviously the people in the church didn't know what a brain looked like because they never saw inside of one. And it's one of those things like that might be one of the most like just brutal digs against religion, because not only do they pay him to put it up there, they now pay to maintain it. And it's literally Michelangelo saying God came from the mind, not the other way around.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, that's That's
Pretty good one,
amazing.
isn't it?
That's amazing because obviously they wouldn't have even known what
Exactly.
a brain looks like, so they couldn't have even found out.
And Michelangelo did. And it's one of those things, if anyone's at home now, just Google like the birth of Adam and brain, and you'll see it, and it's like cross-section next to each other, it's one-to-one.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the things like, there's no way he did that by accident.
That's no coincidence, yeah.
No, like, he's not an artist who did things by accident, and that's a really fun thing. Yes, I did mention someone in chat saying the exact thing that I already said of dissections were illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you love it when we say something and people say, oh, and they add the addendum of something I already said?
God.
That's just the internet as a whole, isn't it?
I haven't seen brain surgery before, but I know my sister, like, she worked like a neuro clinic for a while, and basically turned around to them and was like, "Can I come and attend, like, from the like, you know, behind glass or whatever, go and attend like open brain surgery?"
Just to see.
And was just curious. I was like, why the fuck would you want to see that? And she was, I don't want to see it after I've seen it, I'll tell you that.
It's like that thing of, when are you ever going to get an opportunity to see someone get brain surgery? Hopefully never.
Afterwards, like, probably don't want to have seen that. But you know what? I was curious, and I'm glad that I got to, you know, at least go through with my curiosity and it satisfy it, I guess.
Get to see, like, you know, the base of all human knowledge just right there.
The dong.
Just like 3 pounds of just wet meat inside of like a bone mech suit. It's ready.
The very very unsettling thought. Our brain's just like this weird gelatinous thing sat in some fluid, like wobbling around in our skull.
Yeah, it's where everything comes from.
Yeah. Where God comes from.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's why it's so, like, there's so much symbolism within that one image. But the most basic thing you can take from it is that, like, God is residing within the brain. And it's supposed to be an image showing that God created man, when it's actually the thing you can take from it symbolically is that it's the exact opposite that's being inferred. And it's just, yeah, that's Michelangelo in a nutshell. Because the other famous story about him is one of his wealthy patrons was one of those dickheads who just stands there and is like, I think you should change this, and this.
Right,
like he was like doing a statue of Aphrodite or something like that, and it's like, you need to fix that mistake up there. And it's like, what mistake? It's like, no, there's a mistake up there. I can see it on the nose. And Michelangelo's got like a handful of dust, goes up and just goes, pretends to hit it with his chisel, blows the dust to make it like he hit it, and the patron's like, perfect. I knew there was a mistake. And Michelangelo's like, you fucking weirdo. So I knew you were full of shit, but if I didn't do that, you'd bitch about it the entire time. Like, you only said that because you want to feel like you had input on it.
It's always the case, isn't it? Like, just sometimes it's like even the most basic things of like working in a restaurant, sometimes it's always worth just taking the plate back to, like, even I ask the chef, like, is this the right thing? Or just check it, go, yeah, this is the right thing.
Move stuff around on the plate.
Yeah.
Move it around on the plate,
like,
take it back
obviously,
out.
if anything ever needed replacing and stuff, like, I'd always do that. But when someone's like, I think this is wrong, I'd just be, okay, I'll take it and go check with the kitchen. Whereas if I just stood there and said, I've worked here for years, I can tell you that's correct. They're like, no. But if you take it behind the scenes and go, it's the right thing, isn't it? Yeah, okay, like, let's go. Yeah, we've sorted it all out for you. Like, we've confirmed that it's the right meal.
It's because they just want that thing where they sit there and they look smarter. Because you'll never have someone do that when there's not other people at the table. Is that they want to look smarter in front of other people. And I had it many, many times myself as well, where it's like, serve someone a glass of wine. So that's the wrong temperature, is that? Because I assure you that it's not, sir. Our wine is kept in a wine fridge, which is like very expensive. It's top of the line. It's kept at the exact temperature. I think you need to go adjust the temperature on that fridge. And I'd just like go away, and I'd come back 10 minutes later and be like, you're right, sir. The temperature on the wine was slightly too high. Just so they could get that moment where they'd look at all the people on their table. And as soon as they turn back around, I'd look at the other people on the table and just go. Yeah. And you'd always get that look back from them of being like, we know. They do this every time. They just want to feel like a smug prick.
And that's the thing is, 90% of the time, I want to say, there's somebody else on that table that is like, oh, please don't do this again.
Every time, yeah. Like, every time.
And you just give that, the waiter or whatever it is, like the knowing nod of like, yeah, we just have to put up with this shit.
Yep.
It's normally like a family member.
I had it multiple times. It always came to steaks as well, like the steaks cooked incorrectly. And it's just, I remember just one time the chef came out and he was just so fucking mad. Because he'd like, he'd been cooking all day, and this guy's like, the steak's cooked wrong. He goes, sir, this steak is cooked correctly. And he goes, no, it's not. It's not medium rare. He goes, sir, I assure you this steak is cooked correctly. And he just pointed to his own name on the wall that just said Master Chef of England, awarded to him by like fucking British School of Culinary Arts. I went, sir, have you got one of these? And no. And he goes, then you don't know what you're talking about, and walk back in. And the chef set his own hours. There was he couldn't complain because like the chef was the one in charge of the restaurant. It was a chef's restaurant.
I find like the fun way to get around that is when restaurants, I went to a steak place where it was like, oh, you get like the hot stone and you cut the meat and put it on yourself. It's like, obviously they'll like braise the outside and do it like really like blue, but then from there you get like a hot stone to cook as you would like for the rest of the meat. And it's like, well, that way they can't complain at you because they're the ones that have inevitably cooked it wrong.
And they're going to cook it wrong and ask for another one, yeah.
Well, they can't ask for another one because what's the complaint? Is, well, I cooked this wrong.
That's your problem.
That's on you then.
The other one is like serving steaks with like the fat on the edge, and complains, I don't want the fat on my steak. It's like, that's where the flavour comes from. So, no, I paid for this steak. Why is there so much fat on it? Because you're paying for the fat. The fat is where all the flavour is. That's why it's so expensive, because that is like the absolute most. That is a delicacy right there. That is like going to make your meat just like buttery smooth.
Because I'm a person.
If we cut that off, there'll be no flavour.
I prefer to cut the fat off my, for example, my bacon, and like a lot easier over in the UK because we have like the ham type bacon where it's all on the outside of the cut.
But when you've got a steak, it's like you're paying for the fat, and they're like requesting that it be cut off.
But I still will cook my food with the fat on it because I know that that's where the flavour is, and then the excess fat that's left, trim that off.
It's just baffling to see and then as well, they're so convinced that they're right that they're sat there like. It's like the classic is serving people like a starter, like cold, like I think gazpacho soup and stuff like that, served cold. And like, oh, my soup's cold, so that's how it's served, sir. It's like, I'd prefer it warm. It goes, that's not how it's served, though. Because no, soup should always be hot. Well, not all soup. Like, this is gazpacho. It's served, historically, it's served cold.
Yeah. And it's the classic thing, isn't it, of like something where either it's meant to be cold or it's meant to be served a certain way, and they don't understand what that means on the menu, and they order it anyway, thinking it sounds fancy.
Yeah, which I don't mind. Like, if someone says like, "Oh, I thought it'd be something else," like usually, but okay, we can get you something else, but we'll probably charge you for this meal, or we're like, we'll give you the new meal like for the same cost.
But it's one of those of, well, if you weren't sure what it meant, could you not have asked that before you ordered it?
Yeah, which is usually what we say. Like, if you had a mistake, sir, like, don't feel embarrassed to ask us. If you're not sure about something on the menu, like, and I will get replaced. And just as long as you're aware that, and if they're not a dick about it, it'd be like, if they're not a dick about it, it's like, fine, no, I'll have this, or one of staff will have it. But if they're a huge bell end of like, well, this is not my fault, it's like, well, I'm going to charge you for that meal.
Yeah, 100%. Just determines like where that conversation's going to go. How they react,
if they're really nice and they're apologetic, it's like, okay, I'll replace it, I'll get you something else. Like, we'll take this away unless someone else on the table would like it, or if there's something you notice here. But if they're a huge dick, like, this is your fault, it's like, well, I'm going to charge you for it. Because you ordered it.
Away, but you know what? You could fucking pay for it. And it's baffling to me that like there's still so many people out there, even though this information is like so publicly talked about now and so publicly memed about and stuff, there's still so many people who are assholes to people working, retail restaurants and stuff. It's like, we're the ones at the end of the day that's going to decide how this goes down. If you're an arse to us, we're going to make it your life's hell.
That's the thing, that it does work every now and again. Because all those cases you see where people get called out for it are very minor cases. Like, every person who works in retail, every person who works in a restaurant.
I don't mean being called out for it. I more mean how many people in our situation where it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to sort out their problem, but because they're being an ass, they're going to get the shit end of the stick.
Yeah, and that's the thing, but it doesn't happen consistently enough where it's still not worth it in a lot of people's cases.
It probably does, but they just don't realise it does because they don't realise there was ever an alternative.
Because they're an arsehole.
It's like, well, they don't know that if they were, nice about the situation, they would have got the exact same resolution, but they would have had to pay less or whatever, or they would have got an extra like apology, dessert or whatever or extra discount or whatever.
It's the whole thing, isn't it? Of you get you catch more flies with honey
than with vinegar. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the whole thing of like something I recommend people do who are listening to this. If like they want to just try and get their hand at free stuff, here's a bit of advice for you. If there's a product that you like, or like a thing that you enjoy, like maybe kind of food, like kind of cereal you like, or a chocolate bar, or tea bags, any like thing that in your house that you quite like, check the back of the box. There'll no doubt be a thing for email or letters to send complaints and queries. Just if you send them an email, think, "Hi, just wanted to let you know that I'm a really big fan of this product. I really enjoy using it. It makes my day, or it's like my kid's favorite, or I was having a rough day and this cup of tea would feel good." You might very well get, if you like, just close it off with like so and so, your address or what have you. You might get a bunch of free stuff from that company.
Or
it's not going to happen every time.
Ignore you and say like nothing, or they might just say thank you or whatever. Yeah,
you might get stuck in, but there's a very good chance that they'll send you free stuff for being nice. Yeah. It's the same thing if you like go into a restaurant. Like I had this multiple times where people just come into a restaurant, like and be like, "Oh hey," and it's, "Oh, do you need a table?" Like, no, I was in last night, and you just really looked after my table. I just wanted to say thank you for that because I was in town, and I just wanted to say like thank you and say, "Oh wow, okay, just wait here a minute, sir." And it's like, "Oh yeah, there's a discount, and next time you're in like 20% off or something like that, or a glass of wine."
Yeah, and it's just like.
And it doesn't work every time, but
yeah, the odds are like for every 4 or 5 times you do it, you might get one thing back. But there's still the chance of you getting something back, and I will always, if within my power, work in a situation like that, I would always endeavour to treat those people nicely and give them an incentive to come back.
And I have had that situation where someone's tried to do that and they've very clearly not been sincere. And they've been trying to do it to try and get the free stuff, and normally you can weed those people out.
And like,
the moment they don't get their own way.
I remember this happening once with like my manager, and it was like, I think it was like a day apart, where one person came in and was like, "Look, we did have like a nice time last night, but like I think I got overcharged by a little bit." And just like my manager straight away was like, "Oh, well, what did you get overcharged by?" And they were like, "Oh, just I think we got overcharged by like a glass of wine or something." They said. They were like, "Right, okay, yeah, I'll just like check yesterday's like till and stuff. Like, what time were you in?" "Oh yeah, I can see that was a meal with a glass of wine on." "Yeah, okay, here's the money." But then like a day later, they got someone on the phone shouting down like, "Oh, we got fucked over last night. Like, I demand a refund, or I demand like a chicken check." They call it in Nando's for like 3 meals.
Yeah.
And they sat down on the phone with this person screaming at them for like an hour, going through like CCTV and receipts and stuff, making sure that they found out, no, you didn't actually get ripped off, you paid the right amount.
Just to prove them wrong.
And just like they went straight into spite mode of like, "No, I'm gonna go out of my way to make sure you get fuck all now.
We're gonna specifically tailor this situation so you walk away from it feeling worse." Because you came into this situation, like that's the thing as well. If they're just being like reasonable, it's like, okay, they might be lying, but I can't be asked.
Yeah.
Fuck it, and that's what they were hoping for. They were hoping that they'd have that response, but the thing about I don't want to deal with the person being aggressive. And the thing, it does work, and it works enough for people to like be willing to do that. It's like the whole thing of like men being aggressively flirting with women. It's like it doesn't work all the time, but there is enough women out there who are so uncomfortable, or just like, "Fine, fuck it, I'll give you my phone number so you shut up and leave me alone." Guys see it as a valid tactic to use because like it doesn't work every time, but there's one situation where a woman will be uncomfortable and just give them the fucking number to get them out of there. It's like, well, there we go, done.
Yeah, and like a lot of the time it's either, depending on how the situation goes, like I'll write a number down, give them the number, and it's a wrong number, I'll walk away. Or it'll be, well, if they're the type of person to be, "Well, I'll ring you right now, like, let me see your phone." They'll let them ring, answer it, see the guy save the contact, walk away, block that number. Immediately. Just, okay, job's done now. I can get on with my life. Like, they can leave me the fuck alone now.
And they know they won't. So we had that when we went to the live event, wasn't it? I got that message like the day after of like, "Oh, I was chatting to a girl there and never got a number. Can you get a number for me?" I'm like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And the guy's like, "Why not?" Because that would be a breach of their privacy. Why would I do that? Why would I ruin my reputation so you can go harass a woman?
And it's like one of those things as well. I remember being like younger and just starting to go out drinking and like trying to chat up girls and stuff. And I was definitely in that situation where I was a drunk guy, probably being a bit pushy and then going away like, oh well, that wasn't fair, blah blah blah, and then growing a bit more mature and having a bit more perspective and talking to women about these scenarios that they've been through. It's like, oh no, like, just, a lot of people get really scary, pushy, creepy people. And, then there's even the chance that it wouldn't just be that someone being pushy. Oh no, Carl's gone.
No, it's just the lights in the office went off. It's probably doing a power cycle.
Carl's not been moving enough.
Yeah, it's the end of the day, isn't it, for a lot of people? Because tomorrow's off.
Right. Well, so
there's actually no one in the office right now. They're all like
at 3 o'clock on a 3-day week.
Yeah.
You'd think they could at least push to a bit of overtime on that third day.
No, people are already gone in. So.
Right, job's done. 4.5 day weekend.
3 o'clock on a Wednesday. Fucking done. Nailed it.
Yeah, that's weird. Of like, we're already getting 2 days off. Might as well make sure we get like 2 days, like 2 hours less working on the Wednesday.
If Liz wanted to ensure that the monarchy manages to maintain, if she gives the week off, I guarantee she would have got she would have had the entire youth generation immediately turn around and abolishing the monarchy. If we knew that every couple of years we get a full week off, she should have taken a bit of that personal fortune that she's got and just funded to give everyone Monday off as well. Give us a 5-day weekend and just call it fucking but no. Either way. Speaking of which, it doesn't matter because I guess we can move on to talking about the things we've done this week. I'm just going to go for a quick bathroom break so I can sort out these lights.
I was going to say whatever.
I want to get a bathroom break and go sort this out dead quick.
No worries. I'll run the toilet, so I'll pop us on the break screen for everyone watching live, and we'll be back in a minute. Oh, there we go.
So I don't think I can fix the lighting because when I went out to check, there's just a guy in a t-shirt with a tool belt on going like this. So I think it might have been. I'm not sure if it's. I don't think the building is completely shut down. I just think someone must have left. Some light must have gone off somewhere. So the people watching the video after the fact have to see me in dark mode. Well, that is all good. But we can move on from that because. Lucas, let's talk about Obi-Wan.
Kenobi?
Obi-Wan Kenobi, yes, the show.
To clarify, I've only seen episode 1 and not 2.
Well, this is the thing. I think I put a tweet out where I said, I got 20 minutes into the first episode before I was hit by the profound realization I simply do not give a shit about anything that's happened in this universe anymore.
How did it take you that long to realize?
It took me 20 minutes. I was in the episode, I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, it's Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Tatooine. And I just went, I don't care. I literally do not give a fuck about anything that's going to happen in the show. But I have to watch it because every time I'm going to stream, I'm going to get asked if I've seen it.
Of course, yes.
So I just had to so I did that thing where I just pulled my Switch out and just held it in front of my face and then pulled it down just a little bit every time action happened and then put it back up. Oh, there we go. The lights are back now.
Yay!
The guy with the tool belt on the t-shirt. Anymore. He must have fixed it all for us. That could have happened during recording. That'd be very funny.
Yeah, at least
that happened during a factory video.
At least most people are consuming this in the audio version.
It is indeed. Why? How did you feel about the Obi-Wan Kenobi show?
Well, as I said, I think about one thing, and it's that fucking chase scene.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So, it's the first episode is it's scene setting, isn't it? It's here's Obi-Wan, here he is on Tatooine, and you of course get
he's overlooking Luke, and
you get the cringy ass shot of a little baby Luke Skywalker running around.
But I will say I'm glad that they acknowledge pod racing because it makes perfect sense that why is Luke a good pilot? Oh, because his father was really into pod racing as a kid.
You just never saw it in the original film.
Because pod racing wasn't in existence, and it wasn't a thought in their head at that time, and they make it up as they go along. People don't like to acknowledge, but yeah.
But it makes, and that's one of those extended universe fan theories. Do you think Darth Vader kept up with pod racing? Do you think he had a pod racing station in his helmet or anything? Anyway,
is that how they secretly figured out where Luke was? He's he just was watching pod racing. Darth Vader's what do you mean Skywalker? What Skywalker?
Who's using my fucking name? He's pod racing, but yeah, you get the cringy ass shot of the little baby Luke Skywalker, and then you smash cut to the luckier of the Skywalker twins in their fucking palatial mansion.
And, like, obviously it's one of those things where, yeah, even in the original trilogy, it's like Moisture Farmer Luke and Princess Leia end up being siblings, and it's like, well...
And then at the end of the prequels, it's like, okay, they go to different planets, but the fact that like they're now exploring this, and you see like Luke Skywalker, like dirt farmer on a fucking desert planet where you've got to farm water, running around playing with a fucking stick, and then Princess Leia on his like in a mansion. Like, why did they split them up?
I think it's been like 10 years since I've watched episode 3, so I don't know if they address it or not, but I don't know if this is the actual line or whether they've like redid the line for this show, but like just the idea that Bail Organa sat there and went, oh, well, there's been 2 kids, one's like a son and one's a daughter. Well, we have always wanted a girl. And just then fucked off the boy and just, bye, send him to the fucking dirt planet.
I think this thing is like, oh, if we keep them separate, we can hide who they are a lot easier, because if there's two... But then again, they send Luke Skywalker to a fucking desert planet instead of the giant mansion full of armed guards. So where would he be safer, really?
Well,
on a desert planet?
The armed guards didn't do a very fucking good job in episode 1.
Which leads us to, Lucas, the chase scene. So explain the chase scene.
The chase scene is what I can only imagine a girl who's about 8 years old, Princess Leia. Maybe younger, maybe older. I'm not very good with children's ages, but like,
no,
she's probably no older than 10, being chased by 3, fully grown adult alien people who are all clearly able to run a lot quicker than she is.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be like this tense scene where the little baby Princess Leia is running away from people trying to kidnap her. And it's one of those things where you can see the storyboard for it, can't you? You can see in the script, it's like, a young Princess Leia definitely runs through the forest using her, like, small light frame.
It shows that she's, like, constantly in the forest in the show. Like, oh, she's in the forest again. So clearly she has, a better understanding of the forest and, like, climbs trees a lot more than these aliens must do. But
the problem is they've hired an actress who's, like, as you said, like 6 or 8 years old. And they're running, I describe it like, when the kids in Rugrats would run. When they do that thing where they lean all the way back and they run with their hands like a cat, because they don't physically know how to run properly because their bodies are out of proportion at that age. And it's this little kid doing the little kid running thing as adults who could clearly catch up to something like 3 or 4 strides are like trying to pretend not to be able to catch her, and it's so bad.
And what makes it even worse is that, like, Princess Leia ducks under a tree branch. The woman chasing her, who should have caught her by now, looks at said tree branch, starts running again, slightly runs into this tree branch without even attempting to duck underneath it, and then bounces off it as if it's some, like, immovable, unblockable, like, completely invisible wall that she cannot get past.
And not like a loose tree branch they could push to the side and
just
keep
a
running.
Singular little tree branch that's like, well, that stumped me.
Literally.
And then, literally. And they do the same with she jumps over a little bit of tree
like
root or something.
A 1 foot high log, and then like a guy just absolutely eats
and
shit
this guy
over
is
it.
completely baffled by the existence of trees and just like fucking face plants. And then they have an extended few seconds where Leia is running in a perfectly straight line, but like with them chasing behind, them not catching up, which then cuts to them being ahead of her. And it does that thing where, like, he should be able to, he has his arms out, Leia's right in front of him, and kind of, instead of just grabbing her, he keeps his arms out and, like, kind of waves from side to side as Leia walks very slowly away from him.
And it's that thing of, like, you can see the scene in the script. And it's like, if the actress would have been a little bit older, I mean, they'll actually, run. And it reminds me, it's the exact opposite. Have you seen The Irishman?
No, I didn't watch The Irishman.
So in The Irishman, they have, like, a fight scene in it involving Robert De Niro. But Robert De Niro was, like, 70 fucking years old at the time. And for many of the scenes, when he's supposed to be younger, because it shows his life. They de-aged him, which looks fine for when he's acting, but they have a fight scene, and it's clearly a 70-year-old Robert De Niro shuffling over as, like, he pushes this guy over. And it's like, you do not buy for 1 second that he's a young man. It's just an old man who's been de-aged. It's like, and it's the opposite of that. With things like, it's clearly a child running away. It's like, when kids chase you, or kids ask you to chase them, and you know you can catch me in 5 seconds.
Like when you're playing like tag with them or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, or like hide and seek, and you know you could get them in like, you could just run, you'd be there in like, there's no chance. And you have to pretend not to be able to run very fast to give them a chance.
Yeah.
It's like that, but it's supposed to be a tense action scene where I'm supposed to believe that these trained assassins can't catch this child. It's like, they might as well put the fucking Rugrats sound effects over top of it.
Oh, it's just, it's baffling.
And it's the thing, like we said earlier, it's like, it's not bad. Like, it's competently made, but one of the things that really stuck out to me is like, I was watching it and like, why is Ewan McGregor so shit? And I mean, like, his delivery is fucking awful. What's going on here? Oh no, because they've got to direct him like he was in the prequels. And in the prequels,
either that or he is, saying to them, "I want to emulate that performance." Yeah,
yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, oh yeah, he's been directed so poorly because he's having to act like he did in the prequels, which were directed by George Lucas, who was infamously micromanaging the fuck out of everyone, and every time they tried to do anything beyond like the direction in the script, he'd tell them not to do it.
Apart from Ian McDiarmid, apparently, because
Ian McDiarmid was like, an old school actor who was like, could just shut up.
Is that every single one got told to do nothing and be as bland as possible and just channel all that energy into the Chancellor? Like, yeah.
So he was the only one who was apparently allowed to go off script because because like he's evil. And that's the thing of when people don't know why is the direction so bad, why you're shitting on it. It's because George Lucas explicitly told every actor playing a Jedi. So essentially every actor on screen for 90% of the film's
especially
performance,
in like Revenge of the Sith, yeah,
is that Jedi don't show emotion. So you should be as reserved as possible at all times, so that all their performances are stilted and wooden. And as a result, in this Obi-Wan show, and on top of that, Ewan McGregor was trying to act like, what's his name again now? Alec McGuinness, which also added another level to his performance that made it not his own.
Because that was just a guy that didn't believe in a movie and just didn't give a shit.
It was even funnier.
Performance. Because
Alec McGuinness also didn't give. So it's Ewan McGregor trying to act like someone who didn't give a shit, who was being told to act poorly on purpose, and is now 10 years later, 15 years later, having to emulate that performance again. So it was like 3 levels removed, and it's like it's like doing like an artifact of JPEG, where every time you save the image, it gets a little bit worse. It's like every step removed from Alec McGuinness's original performance, it just gets worse.
And it's weird, isn't it? Because they have a scene near the very start, and it's not really like... it's just... You know what? He's doing a bit of bartering with a Jawa, and it's meant to be like quippy dialogue, very Marvel MCU-esque, very prequel-esque of like...
Very Ewan McGregor-esque.
Very Ewan McGregor-esque, yeah.
Because he loves being Obi-Wan.
Could perform it very well, but instead he just stands there and talks very plainly to this Jawa.
And he has no emotion, he doesn't move. It's like...
But he makes a joke, and then still has no emotion in the joke.
Even though and that's the thing as well, like Alec McGuinness's performance, he never really had any humor about him. He was very wry, but like very like not sarcastic, but in that way he was like a bit witty, I suppose, would be the right way to refer to it. Like he was never a funny character. And then all the humor from the prequels largely comes from people memeing on how bad it was.
Yes, and
it's just it's
like
hilarious.
A line of if you're gonna like steal my parts to sell them back to me, you could at least clean them first. And he just says it so matter of fact.
Because that's the direction that he's got to do. Because they can't change the character too much. He has to be the same character he was in the prequels. And in the prequels, he was an awful character.
Yeah.
So I don't care what anyone says about those movies. Like the acting is awful because the direction was terrible. The actors are good.
There's
all the actors are great.
There's so many memes in it.
Because the acting was so bad.
Obviously, the most obvious one is like the sand line, but again, he got told to deliver it like that. Hayden Christensen got told that was the correct delivery of that line,
and Hayden Christensen doesn't like it. And you can see that he's visibly pissed off in that shot. And he's telling that the shot they use shows Hayden Christensen being annoyed that he has to deliver it like that, because that's the only shot they got. So, and something that gets mixed up when we talk about this is like, they think we're making fun of the actors. Like, no, the actors are all great. Like Samuel Jackson's in that movie, and he gives a shit performance.
An awful performance, but
And
I would never sit there and say like I think Samuel L. Jackson of all people is a bad fucking actor.
no, but he had bad direction, and now they're having to replicate the bad direction that they had. And it's like,
again,
why?
Ewan McGregor, great actor, super charming and witty and handsome, and then he gets given like wooden slate of a character to be.
The instant that he puts the costume on, like, I would much rather they just said, fuck it, just let Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen just talk. In every interview they've given, when it's just them as actors.
Such good chemistry.
Yeah, talking about how much they love Star Wars. And like, yeah, I can't wait to get back. And then you see him on screen, and he's just like, so you're not doing anything. There's nothing happening. It's so bad.
It's amazing. It's like,
and it all goes back to George Lucas. And that's that thing I saw the other day that I just, when we were playing Smash, I think I mentioned it, about that hard drive article of we asked Harrison Ford what his favourite Han Solo moment was, and he just responded, I wish George Lucas would die. It's just...
And that is satire to anyone that doesn't know the hard.
Which is that thing of like, you can understand it because like he is such a bad director. And the fact that like he managed to micromanage the shit out of that series, and like everyone gives a universally bad performance, except for the Emperor, who was mentioned was the only one who was allowed to have fun and show emotion, because Sith are allowed to be emotive. And it's like, that's why Hayden Christensen, when he's Darth Vader, he actually starts emoting more because he's allowed to.
It's one of those things, isn't it? Like you even pointing out, yeah, George Lucas was the guy that directed the first movie so badly that his wife at the time, that was the editor, had to save the cut.
In the edit, and then in the next one,
he removed himself from being the director of probably the two best Star Wars movies.
Yeah, and then he had full, complete control of the prequels, which are just universally considered to be awful. They have some parts in there that are good, but that's mostly like mimetic change. That's largely mimetic, and a lot of people view them with rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah,
they are ironically enjoyable.
Like,
and then the sequels.
I was gonna say there was a post going around recently. Like, I don't know if it's an old or new post, but it was just, come on, like, what is the internet doing of just a Reddit post getting upvoted? I think that the original trilogy should get brought in line with that of the prequels or the sequels.
That's all it is.
Because they've got so much better CGI and stuff.
It's because people watch the prequels ironically, but it's like, but they're too stupid to realize that you're supposed to be enjoying this ironically. And they're just, because they're being told to enjoy it. It's that thing of like, it's almost like group mentality of like, Joe, when people are in a crowd and someone cheers, and even if you're not really feeling like cheering, you'll still cheer. It's like that with watching a movie. It's like, so many people tell you that you should enjoy this thing that they do, and so like as a result, they convince themselves that the prequel trilogy is good because all they see in their peripheral is people telling them that it is, but they don't realize they're enjoying it ironically.
It's kind of the trap that you fall into a lot when you know, a lot younger, of, say for example, being told like, oh, this classic movie is incredible, and
you're afraid to say, oh, I don't like it, because you've been told that it's good. And it's like, no, it's okay to say you don't like it
by so many people that you'll watch it and maybe you don't understand it, or maybe you don't think it's very good, or what have you, but you will just kind of roll along with it of like, oh yeah, I guess that was a great movie because everyone else told me it was a great movie.
What did you like about it? And usually when you're younger, you lack the ability to explain why you do, because you don't have critical thinking skills that are as developed as an adult. And it's okay when you say, I don't like it. You might not have the ways to explain it, but as you get older, you will.
I watched Goodfellas when I was like 14, 15, and was just there like, boring. It was a good movie, yeah. Like,
that's the thing for me, I find it boring.
I guess it was. Like, people told me it was a good movie, and I didn't actively hate it, so I guess it's a great movie, yeah. Like, and then kind of, you know, I rewatch it now, and I'm like, well, I understand now why I like it now, but I didn't as a kid.
I can watch movies like that. Like, I appreciate why people do like it. I can see the acting's very good, the direction's very good, the way it's framed is very good, the story's very good. But personally, I don't like this kind of movie. It's that thing of like, I am able to look at it in an objective way and say it is on paper objectively a good movie, but it's not a movie that I like.
Yeah, and
that's a distinction not a lot of people are able to draw. Of like, you can like something and it'd be bad, and you can also think something is good and not like it.
Yeah, and
something doesn't necessarily have to be good for it to be enjoyable.
Yeah, I will say, like, Ryan in chat is saying, like, the fight scenes in the prequels better, and I agree to an extent. Like, not all of them were great. Attack of the Clones has kind of not got the best action for the most part. You know, there's like the Yoda fight scene, which is just wow.
But at the same time, mimetically, I think it's elevated it to another level of the ironic enjoyment I get watching that is because it's just so stupid. Just watching CGI Yoda just like backflip everywhere.
But watching, you know, the Darth Maul fight scene, like the action in that is great. Watching the Mustafar fight is great.
My favorite bit is when Darth Maul just starts like trying to burn Ewan McGregor's fingers, and he's like, tss, tss, and you're looking like this is like good job, Darth Maul. Like, zzz, zzz.
He looks like a guy that would burn your fingers and enjoy it though.
Yeah, he's looked like he's having fun. I can't wait for him to come back with robot legs. He's gonna come back with robot legs and fight Ewan McGregor.
It was a character that was just purely a cool visual, and admittedly, it was very cool visual.
At the time,
but lasted so long because they brought it back so many times.
We had that thing in the playthrough we did, like Force Unleashed, where we talk about how like Darth Maul is not a character; he is a visual. Like he is a visual that was designed to sell movie posters and toys. And the amount of people like, no, he's a real character, and they always said the same thing in the extended universe. Like, no, it's that thing. In the movies, he's not a character.
No, because
in the canon of the movies, he has.
Well, in Star Wars Rebels, it's like, no, that's not what Episode 1 is.
Yeah, it's like, oh, in the Clone Wars TV show, it's like that wasn't canon.
That wasn't invented.
Yeah, going by like in the realm, if you view the movie just as it exists when it was released, he is not a character.
Like, look, we were all kids that thought he was badass. Okay, look, we can just be safe and admit
we can all say that
he looked fucking cool and he had a double-ended lightsaber and it was awesome.
People lack the critical thinking ability to like pass those two things being different. It's like, okay, this extended universe that exists, that does expand his character as it exists right now. But looking at the movie as it existed at the time, ignoring that, he did not have a character. Viewing it through the lens of what people at the time were able to, without the benefit of the hindsight we have. He is not a character. He doesn't do anything. He has like 3 lines of dialogue.
And it's so weird to me. The weirdest thing to me is that they got Peter Serafinowicz to do the voice.
Yeah.
Like, they got a different voice actor in for like 3-4 lines. It's so confusing.
And now it's Sam Witwer.
Yeah, for the animated versions, who was
Peter Seraph,
the person that played Starkiller, the Apprentice.
Yep. He also does the voice. He also does the voice of the Emperor in animated series as well. Because he's like a huge Star Wars nerd, and it's that thing of like people lack the ability to pass that information. It's like we get that all the time, don't we? Where we'll talk, and people will always say, "But in the extended universe," like one that happened recently with a video we released, where I mentioned offhand about like the Witch King in Lord of the Rings. When I say, "Oh yeah, the Witch King," he gets stabbed in the back of the leg by a dagger, and he goes down his ass, even though he's like saying, "No man can kill me." And there's a bunch of comments saying, "Well, in the books, that's an enchanted dagger that one of the hobbits." Like, yeah, in the books, the films aren't the books because they're films, not books.
Yeah.
But like the amount of people who are like don't seem to be able to draw that distinction of like, well, in the books, yeah, it's an enchanted, but that's not what the movie does not tell you it's enchanted. So if you watch the movies as they exist,
it makes
that is not
sense.
That is information you are not given.
And,
but like,
I was gonna say, did you see as well that apparently like there was like previews that came up for that Smeagol game, the Gollum game?
If you're not doing fucking drop kicks.
Well, no, basically it's almost entirely a stealth game with a like, you know, instant fail bullshit. Like,
okay, done that. Well, that game's
so it's going to be a bad game probably because I hate that kind of mechanic. But there's a couple of takedowns that you can do, but they're like stamina based, and you can't take down all enemies and this kind of crap.
It should be the easiest stealth game ever because you've got the fucking One Ring.
Well, no, you don't.
Oh, because he's on his quest to get the one. Do you know what they should be then? Do you know they could save that game?
Trying to track the hobbits, getting, you know, and I think it leads up to where they find him in is it Fellowship at the end that they find him?
Do you know what that should be then? A New Game Plus. Do you like in Metal Gear Solid you get stealth camo? Yeah. New Game Plus should be of the One Ring, and it's just you're invisible the entire time.
But
anyway,
it's apparently that game is like getting greenlit because they're trying to get away from how like gory Lord of the Rings has been. You know, that shitty Tolkien estate that is in charge of it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
we don't like how violent the video games and the movies were, because that's not as violent as the books were. And it's like, he was writing about battles and wars, and like, what did you think was happening?
The Battle of the Five Armies? I know, like, the original Hobbit is just a children's story.
No, not everyone was there with Nerf guns, Karl. Like, what did they think? Apparently, they were like, yeah, these movies are way too violent. It's like
maybe the Hobbit movies are too violent because the Hobbit was literally a children's book. Tolkien wrote that for his kids. But those Lord of the Rings books are about a battle for Middle Earth.
Yeah.
And like, Sauron is like an evil monster who's like obliterating entire armies with a single swing of his mace.
I haven't read the books, but all I can imagine is that those books are maybe not written in like a lot of gory detail, but at the same time they are depicting a giant war where lots of battles and death happen. And I'm like, how is this a series where you thought violence was not going to be applicable?
It's about war. It's like based on Tolkien's experience in World War One.
Oh, is it? Oh, right.
Yeah. It was in World War One. It's like, so it's one of the things, it's like a criticism of that, of like, Mordor, the industrialization creeping over, the fertile like land of peace. And like, just the machinations of war, just ravaging the lands and like, just stripping it of resources and men.
Yeah. I struggle with like trying to think of the context that was written in, because I just know it's like, well, that is an old book. That's in my brain. I'm just like, that is old book. I don't remember when it was written and what context it was written.
That's fair, yeah. But it's like based on his experience in World War One. It's one of those things that once it's pointed out, it's very easy and obvious.
It is.
It's easy to see and obvious to think about like the implications of. I hate the Tolkien estate.
It's awful, isn't it?
I fucking hate it.
And but
it's like, just if he was alive today, he'd be like fucking sick.
Yeah,
he'd love it. Like if he saw that, wow, Shelob's a sexy spider lady. That's sick, that isn't it?
Oh God, no.
He must love that shit. And that's one of the things that I said, because I got a long rambling email about that Witch King thing, and I just wrote back of like, if you want to say the books and the films are distinct canons on their own, like the same source, same source people, they're distinct canons. That means that the games are canon as well, which means sexy Shelob is canon. So if you want to say that the book, like anything revealed in the books, is canon to the films, that means stuff introduced in the film should be canon to the books as well. It should work both ways.
God, sexy Shelob. Why?
Sexy Shelob. You don't want to have sex with a giant spider.
And I know it is that like Shelob is some crazy powerful godlike being or some bollocks, but it's like, why did they have to make her a sexy woman? It's
much funnier when it's just a giant spider. But that was one I got a lot of, like, well, in the books, it's like, yeah, you notice here, like, you mentioned the word book, and a book is not a film.
And we were criticizing the movie.
The movie, yes. And some people just seemingly unable to pass that they're different things.
Remember in that movie where the shot lasted very long with him being able to not do anything, and it looks really stupid because she just monologues at him while he could have done literally anything in the context of the movies without knowing that that's an enchanted blade. It just looks silly as fuck.
And they never say that. And even if there might be a deleted scene where they mention it.
It might be in like the extended trilogy, but again, that wasn't in the theatrical cut. So watching the version that was released to the public, it looks stupid.
Same thing like all Star Wars stuff, like when we talk like Darth Maul's not a character. He is in the extended universe. Yes, but the extended universe is not in the film.
And I meant to say earlier,
distinct entities.
Did you see as well, like that Sam Witwer is such a fucking nerd that he's like, well,
he wants to be back in,
it was like there was some background thing in one of the Star Wars, I think it was like Book of Boba Fett episode, where it confirms like a trooper that only existed in the Force Unleashed games or something, which means that the Force Unleashed is canon, which makes the Starkiller canon. And like, Sam, we get it that you like Star Wars, calm down.
He also as well really wants to get paid.
Yes, yeah. Sure he does.
And speaking of wanting to get paid, did you see the C-3PO cameo?
I did think to myself, oh, is that C-3PO in the background? Then they shoot immediately to a different protocol droid that clearly isn't C-3PO, and I'm like, oh, that must be mistaken. It must just see that there's protocol droids in the scene.
It is C-3PO, because if you watch it with subtitles, I watch all things with subtitles on. He is subtitled as C-3PO. And that to me is like the ultimate example of that sandwich. Like the actor wants to get paid. Because Anthony Daniels, if people don't know, the actor who plays C-3PO, is a huge prick. A legendary prick.
Apart from his double saying that he's a lovely guy, Karl. Remember that?
I have actually been yelled at by proxy by Anthony Daniels. So we released a video many years ago now where we talked about the fact that Anthony Daniels is convinced that nobody else but him can ever play C-3PO. And like some of the key details from that include that during the sequel trilogy, as a courtesy, a lot of the original actors were asked if they wanted to come back. So Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca, was asked, would you like to come back and play Chewbacca? And Peter Mayhew at the time was very old, didn't have a lot of mobility at the time. So we'll put you in the costume for a couple of shots. The shots next to Han, that'll be you. And then we'll bring a stunt actor in because you're an old man. You can't physically deal with this for extended lengths of time. But as a courtesy to you, so in acknowledgement of the fact that you are Chewbacca, you get to be in a couple of scenes. You get to hang around on set, and then a stuntman will come in. And I think the stuntman even said that he refuses to tell people which scenes are him.
Oh, right. Just in
to
respect
maintain,
for Peter Mayhew, yeah.
Out of respect for Peter Mayhew being the original guy. Likewise with a bunch of original actors who got voice cameos, like Ewan McGregor got reached back out to when Rey picks up the lightsaber. Ewan McGregor recorded some lines of him talking, and they mixed that in with Alec McGuinness, and
because it was that thing of he gets the voices in her head, and everyone was like, "Oh, is that Obi-Wan talking to her through the lightsaber?" It's like, yeah, they were original lines.
And they went out and they got Ewan McGregor to do that, and I think they even get a bunch of Star Wars actors got cameos, and that's again out of reverence and respect for their acknowledgement to it. When Anthony time came, well, C-3PO is going to be in this movie. Let's reach out to Anthony Daniels, and they said, "Do you want to just do the voice?" He is for years complained about that costume being shit,
bitched and whined the entire time I've known about anything behind the scenes with Star Wars. There's always been stories of Anthony Daniels fucking hates being in that suit.
Yeah, he never shut up complaining about it. And keep in mind as well, his co-star was a little person who had to sit inside a fucking trash can in the desert, and they didn't complain.
And just do some beep boops.
Yeah, they never complained. So they asked him, do you want to come back, do the voice, be on set, maybe wear the costume for one scene? And Anthony Daniels like, no, it has to be me. And he made them redesign the entire suit to fit him, specifically to his specifications, because he complained about it not fitting right. So they had the suit made, because they were going to put a stunt actor in it, and he's like, no, remake it for me, and here's all the complaints I have about it. And then he insisted on being in a suit in every single scene. And when they asked him why, he's like, well, no one else can be C-3PO. No one else gets the mannerisms right. And he said this in front of Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis, who can be a fucking gorilla with a machine gun.
Or Gollum.
And they were there talking, and Anthony Daniels like, no one could ever replace me as C-3PO in front of a guy whose literal job title is pretending to moves like other people.
Literally sits there and studies animals and pretends to be animals that he isn't. And
has got an Academy Award for doing this shit.
But no one else can replicate Anthony Daniels doing the robot. Just
exactly, no. Yes. And so they redesigned the suit, they brought him back and made him do all the voice. But it gets even other things that he did is for the prequel trilogy. And this is why I love, I don't like George Lucas in his directing style, but I do like that he had that, that iron fist, because it led some very funny stories of for the prequel trilogy. C-3PO, once again, he's in it, but he is in it as he's not built yet, is he?
In episode 1 he's not, and then in episode 2 and 3 both he is.
So Anthony Daniels once again provided the voice for when he wasn't built, and again, according to behind the scenes stuff, just Anthony Daniels was like, the puppeteer didn't do the work right. So what do you mean? Well, the puppeteer just didn't capture the mannerisms of C-3PO, right? I hope you correct that. And he bitched and he moaned and he whined, and they gave him the puppeteering rig for Attack of the Clones. So he's one of those people who a professional puppeteer who'd done it for years and worked for ILM. Anthony Daniels you don't know how to do puppeteering right. I should do it. So they let him do it for the Attack of the Clones, and they cut that scene out.
It really smacks of what you were saying earlier with Michelangelo of oh no, that nose isn't right.
Yeah.
And Anthony Daniels is something's wrong. So, well, what's wrong? It's just not right. They didn't get it right. Let me.
The joke I make is, if something was cut out of the prequels for not looking very good, you know it was bad. And then there was the CGI work as well, where we can't have Anthony Daniels walking down, like, the scene where C-3PO's head gets knocked off.
Oh, yeah.
Let's CGI, and he's sat in on the CGI work, and again, bitched and moaned endlessly they didn't get it right. It's like, well, they're using source footage of you. They're copying your mannerisms, like, it's not right. And it's just that thing of, like, as you mentioned, he simultaneously spends all his time complaining that he hates Star Wars, but then whenever someone else tries to do it, it's like, well, you can't do it like I can.
That look, we literally will let you still be C-3PO, but you won't have to get in the suit anymore that you hate.
No one else, and that's the thing, he says no one else can do it. And when we mentioned that in the video, we got a very brusque comment from his official stand-in, who goes to things like events or does pickup shots and stuff like that for CGI work, saying, well, I've met Anthony, he's a really nice guy. I don't think it's fair that you say he's like a huge prick. And it's like, I just pinned that comment. I remember responding the fact that he, of all people on this series, has an official stand-in that he had to train says a lot.
And I think as well, if, it'll be a similar experience of oh, well, I was just at the Star Wars celebration where Anthony Daniels was on stage for 30 seconds and he seemed like a pleasant guy.
Yeah, and it's just that thing, the fact that Anthony Daniels had to specifically handpick his own stand-in and makes them train with him because they can't do it right. And then you've got James Earl Jones, James Earl Jones has never once sat in on any work they do for Darth Vader. Why? Because he doesn't give a shit. No, that's the thing, nobody else in that series gives a shit, even though pretty much every single person, besides maybe the guy who played R2, has a realistic complaint for them. They have more of a reason to complain that their character is not being portrayed correctly. And the fact that nobody else in the series even gives a fuck. Like, James Earl Jones doesn't care. Harrison Ford didn't give a fuck when they cast that guy to play him. And they were asking him, oh, do you think he gets the man? He's like, I don't care. Luke Skywalker, Luke Skywalker in all the extended universe, Mark Hamill doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't go on. Another thing, if he did give a fuck, he doesn't go into interviews and shit talk the people pretending to be him.
And it's that's the thing, isn't it? Well, who are the people that have shit to say about Anthony Daniels? It's all of the cast and crew that worked with him for years and years,
including R2D2.
And
that's the thing. I've been yelled at him by proxy where his official stand-in's well, he's never acted like that. It's the fact that he sits there and tells you how to pretend to be a slightly effeminate British robot when nobody else who work on the series cares about their character or its legacy.
And also that there's many other protocol droids in Star Wars that act almost the same.
Yep.
And it's not quite C-3PO, but guess what? I'm sure one of those people, or one of those CGI robots, could probably do the fucking job.
It's the thing as well, when he gets asked about it, he always says, the fans would know. And it's the fans don't care.
No.
Do the fans care about Darth Vader? So if they got Darth Vader's voice wrong, people would probably comment on that.
It's but when
and they always use a stand-in for that.
It's oh, well, he said that he's got a bad feeling about this. So cool, it's C-3PO.
That's it. If he did the voice, it'd be fine. But it's the fact that he specifically insists on being in the costume. And even when he's not in the costume, and then he'll actively just shit on the work of puppeteers and CGI people. And then whenever they bring a stand, for the sequels when they had the stand-in, who was Andy fucking Serkis. He was shit-talking Andy Serkis' performance and he didn't get it quite right. They all try and pretend to be me, but they can never be me. It's fuck off.
Yeah.
This is a film where you've got bloody James Earl Jones in it. And James Earl Jones denied credit for the voice of Darth Vader because he didn't see it as being that important.
You're saying a lot of names that are a lot more recognizable than Anthony Daniels.
Exactly, yes.
And all it smacks of is just he got this one gig, and as you say, he just wants to get paid, and he needs to find every fucking excuse he can to be the only person that can play C-3PO. He still wants that paycheck.
But that's fair. If he still wanted that paycheck, that's fine. There are plenty, we mentioned Sam Witwer. He fucking loves Star Wars and he wants to be the apprentice again. Sure, because he loves Star Wars. Anthony Daniels hates Star Wars. He never stops complaining about Star Wars. And every time he does an interview where someone brings it up, he'll complain.
But he never ever got as big a paycheck, as big a gig as Star Wars. So
yeah, there's a great bit where it's there's a guy who tries to bring back all the original actors from Star Wars. I think it's called Bring Back Star Wars. And it's just a thing of can I get the original actors to come back? And Anthony Daniels is in that. and he just acts like such a prick the entire time. Like he actively does not want to be talking about Star Wars. Like, I've done other things, It's like, then why don't you? Why do you never shut the fuck up about it then?
Why don't you just let C-3PO go if you're just proud of other things you've done?
He simultaneously acts like he's above it, but then when they try and bring someone else in, he's like, no, it's mine. It's like a child. And that's why I love like James Earl Jones. Like, he don't give a fuck. It's like, I'm Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Like, well, we're gonna get a stand-in. He's like, yeah, I'm busy. Sure.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to voice Darth Vader in Soul Calibur 4? Not really, no. Okay. And that's the thing, you never got James Earl Jones being like, well, I need to, sign off on the person to get to do the voice. Like, no, because it's not me. Like, the character, I play the character, but the character belongs to culture at this point. And the people who do it is like, yeah, sure, whoever you think is going to, do the role justice is probably who's going to be best for it.
Don't wait until, Star Wars is public domain and someone makes a horror movie about, Darth Vader without a shirt, just hunting for honey.
So good. The best thing is, though, when it comes to with George Lucas and Anthony Daniels, I think I mentioned this on a private conversation, but I'll mention it on the podcast. It's really funny. Is for years Anthony Daniels was trying to be like, look, can C-3PO have a heroic moment? I think C-3PO needs a heroic moment. The fans would like to see C-3PO have a heroic moment, and every time he asked that, George Lucas went, no, he's always scared.
And that's the thing is, what's great about that is that R2-D2 gets multiple.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why he didn't like it. Because I think it's Kenny Baker who played R2-D2.
Yeah.
Very infamously had a very frosty relationship with Anthony Daniels for years, where Anthony Daniels would continually make fun of Kenny Baker for not being a proper actor. It's like all you do is sit inside a trash can and beep. As he sat there inside like a fucking solid gold dildo suit going, oh my. It's like, really? Really? You got to talk shit? And that's the thing, you talk shit to other actors and things. It's like, he sat there dressed in the C-3PO costume being like, you're not proper actors. Like, fuck off. It's a space opera. This is he's inspired by Flash Gordon serials and westerns.
God. And I love it when you get it the opposite way round of you get fucking Ian McKellen being Gandalf and yeah, fuck yeah.
That's the thing, he loved it.
He's like, well, oh, you're not a proper actor if you're gonna play some wizard in a fantasy movie. He's like, I don't care. I'm gonna go and be fucking Magneto. Let's fly around. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, he loves it. That's the thing. It's and that's the true mark of an actor as well, the confidence. You can tell Anthony Daniels is horribly, horribly insecure about the fact that he's most well known for Star Wars. And that's why I say every time he gets brought up if he does interviews about other projects that he's been on, if they bring up Star Wars, he'll leave. There are multiple examples of leaving interviews for talking about Star Wars.
If you did an interview with Ian McKellen or Patrick Stewart and told them, well, the only thing I know you for is X-Men, they'd probably just laugh it off.
They'd talk about it, yeah.
And they'd be yeah, we're okay, we also are serious thespians, but you know what? Those X-Men movies were fun to work on.
Yeah, they they built my house.
Yeah.
They built an extra wing to my house, and that's the thing of and that attitude be fine. It's like Harrison Ford doesn't like Star Wars. And if you ask him about it, he'll usually sit there and he'll mumble something or whatever. But that's always been clear that he doesn't like Star Wars. That's fine. That is well known about him. And he had to be dragged kicking and screaming to come back.
Yeah.
Anthony Daniels.
They had to put a lot of zeros on that paycheck.
They did, yes. That dump truck full of money.
Daniels is he's the juxtaposition of himself where he sits there and says he hates Star Wars but can't get away from it. He won't let himself get away from it.
And even when they offer to do stand-ins, he'll insist on doing the work that he hates. So do you know when when you're a kid and your mum complains that no one tidies up the house, and then you try and tidy up the house and she'll stop you from doing it and then go tidy up the house instead? And then complain about the fact they've got to tidy the house. It's that. It's they're only happy if they're miserable. He's only happy, and that's the thing. Even when he was offered the opportunity, just do the voice. Just do the voice. Sit in a fucking sound studio for a couple of days.
Literally still be the character and still get the paycheck. You'll
still get credited as C-3PO. The fucking stand-in won't get a credit. You will. You'll turn up to the premiere. You'll get, and he's like, no, and he insists on forcing himself into the outfit and wandering around the desert.
I like this.
And it's hilarious. And like I said, yeah, I've been yelled at him by proxy because his official standing's like, no, he's not a prick. It's like, you're his official standing. You're paid to say that. You're paid to fucking lick his balls.
So that was our review of Kenobi episode 1.
I'm going to have to watch it because it's going to be like, it's going to be all over the internet for the next 6 weeks.
And I love the fact that it's like, we finally got the answer, the mystery revealed of why did Kenobi in Fortnite have a knife?
Oh, is he? Oh,
he's got a knife and a jetpack, and it's like, what? And that got released before Kenobi. So everyone was like, why is Obi-Wan Kenobi's signature weapon a fucking knife?
Not a lightsaber.
And not a lightsaber. And
you know what it is? It's like they got the rights to Kenobi, but not the rights to a lightsaber.
No, it's because you know that Disney are probably like, well, he doesn't use a lightsaber in the movie. In that TV show.
Bet you
100% he has a fight with Darth Vader.
I will bet you £100 right now there's a lightsaber in that fucking TV show.
100% him and Darth Vader are a lightsaber fight, and then it's like Darth Vader has some weird agreement to let Luke Skywalker live on Tatooine as long as he stays quiet.
This is a TV show that exists entirely to make weird nerds who make the prequels their entire personality cream their fucking pants.
Yeah.
It is going to have everybody in it. Like Darth Maul's getting a fucking cameo. The Emperor's going to be in that.
Literally, the only reason I think that this exists is to explain that Darth Vader knew that Luke was on Tatooine, but for some reason didn't go to attack him.
And it's going to be that.
I think that's going to be like this is going to be the explanation in this series.
It is a show that exists entirely to make weirdo nerds cream their pants,
and for me, make people shut up about that plot hole. I think. It's like, oh, but it's so easy. He's called Skywalker and he lived on Tatooine. Just go to Tatooine and find the kid called Skywalker. And that's always been the complaint, hasn't it? Of like, It really shouldn't have been hard for Darth Vader to know where fucking Luke was.
Well, it's like when he says, like, he can sense Luke Skywalker from across the galaxy, then he stood like 2 foot away from Princess Leia when he says it. And it's like, because she wasn't his sister in the canon yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She was just like Princess from Alderaan.
Yeah.
And they're going to retcon that by saying that Princess Leia has Force powers and uses them to conceal herself from being found.
Yeah.
I guarantee. I'm going to make a bet right now. 2 episodes in, so we know Darth Vader's in it. I'm going to bet we've got Darth Maul. The Emperor. The Emperor's got to be in it because he's the only villain they've ever made that's actually interesting besides Darth Vader. And Ian McDiarmid wants to get fucking paid.
And we're going to come in as another evil guy.
I reckon that's going to be his only cameo.
What are the odds then? What are the odds that we get Jar Jar?
We're going to get a cameo.
Yeah, that's what I mean. What are the odds that we're going to see Jar Jar somewhere?
Do you know, like in that CGI insert for the special edition re-release, where it's like they have the shot of the Gungan planet?
Oh, yeah.
I reckon it's going to be either something like that, or they'll mention Jar Jar. Or, do you know what? It'll be one of those knowing nods right there, of like he'll be working on a pod racer or something like that, and it'll just be like, oh, don't touch that, it's dangerous. Like, yes, I know, I've heard.
No, he's a senator at that point, isn't he?
Is Jar Jar a senator? Oh, maybe there'll be a wink or a nod to Jar Jar, and it'll be one of those things.
Be like Bail Organa being like, "Oh yes, I've got an appointment," and then like he walks into a room and Jar Jar's on the side or something.
I've got an appointment with Senator Jar Jar, and it's one of those things where nerds
Senator
on the internet
give him his title.
They're gonna cream their pants, and you'll get the thumbnails of the. I can't believe they actually did it.
Senator Binks wants you.
And Ahsoka's going to be in it, and it's like, and he's going to pick up 8 different lightsabers, and Darth Maul's going to have robot legs.
Mm-hmm.
And Sam Witwer's going to be on Twitter complaining that he wants to be in it. Because that's the thing, like, Sam Witwer can't be in it, but Anthony Daniels can. Such a shame, because he loves Star Wars so much.
Yeah. I think you got that the wrong way around.
Not Ian McDiarmid, yeah. Sorry, Sam Witwer loves Star Wars. He's the apprentice.
No, but
he loves it. But...
in my head, you said that he can be in it and Anthony Daniels can't.
Oh,
I don't know if I misheard or you said it wrong yet.
It's a shame he can't be in it when Anthony Daniels is. And I'm hoping that one cameo is the only one that he gets. Because I feel like every time they try and do something like that, he insists on being in it. And that 1 second cameo is as much as they were willing to do. Because I bet you anything, he was supposed to have a more expansive role. And when they found out that he had to insist on being in the costume, they went, I'm not fucking working with him.
He was going to be like, assistant to Princess Leia or something like that, like one of his attendants or something, yeah.
And they were just like, we're not fucking working with this guy. Give him his cameo and like give him his paycheck and tell him to go away.
I hope so.
And just put the Emperor back in it. Just let Ian McDiarmid just fucking ham it up.
Just want to see him do another light twirl.
All I want is like, I want it to be absolute schlock. I don't want them, because I'm really worried they try to tell a serious story, and I don't want that. I want it to crash and burn and go off the fucking rails.
Well, I mean, the first episode is quite a serious tone, and like, or I saw like, you know, the director comparing it to like the Joker and Logan. I was like, why are we? All right, like, I know that the premise of that interview was that, oh well, it's like a serious tale about one person that we follow through, and like it's not about the rest of the cast and stuff. It's just about Kenobi, but like.
Which is why we keep going to unrelated characters who he's not interested in.
That's exactly why half of the first episode was about Princess Leia then, yeah, got it.
Definitely. That's what I love about that, because like they say that, and it's like it's disproven by the first 5 minutes of the episode. Like, it's not. You just want people on the internet to cream the pan. You want to put as many fucking references in. This is just say it. But either way, I think we can call it there. Like, you know, Obi-Wan sucks, and I'm gonna have to watch it because otherwise I'm gonna be left in the lurch. Discussion.
So I'm gonna go over to check the Patreon for any questions for anyone listening on podcast services. We are now currently been recording our podcast live for patrons Wednesday 2 p.m. British time, and we'll just be potentially continuing. We'll see how this goes, but we'll be doing some Q&A exclusive to the Patreon. And if you want to get that, go over there, I guess.
Okay, so you're just going to do a quick check now, yes? Are we stopping recording, or are you trying to edit this?
Well, yeah, we can say goodbye to everyone on podcast services. So, thank you.
Cheers, everybody.
Enjoy your week. We'll see you next Thursday.
Check it out. Check out the links below to things like our Twitches and our streams.
Hell yeah.